biology, the mitochondria has had a central role, and this is mostly related to two advantages of mitochondrial loci. One of them, the high evolutionary rate that we know it has, or all of them have, or most of them, and then that it's also easy to obtain and analyze. And this is particularly true when we study intraspecific, when we perform intraspecific analysis, in particular if we do phylogeography or population genetics in general. Sometimes we will be able to find differentiation at the intraspecific level or among closely related species that we won't find with different sources of information. And this is particularly true, for example, in the house wren. This species is the most widespread passerine in the neotropics. You can find it from Canada at 58 degrees north, all the way to southern Argentina and Chile at 55 degrees south. And in addition, it is present both at low altitudes and at the high Andes, so it's virtually everywhere in the American continent. And there have been some discussions in the last decades on whether these are two species, one in North America and the other one in the neotropics, but most researchers still consider there's only one species here. So we have found, nevertheless, and some other researchers as well, some variation, and I will focus on South America in this case, and some studies show that there are mitochondrial lineages in this species. But as we know, due to the maternal inheritance of mitochondria and the lack of recombination, it's perhaps not the best way to try to analyze gene flow or to see whether these lineages are isolated. So in this context, the objective of this study was to analyze the evolutionary history of the house wren, combining both mitochondrial and genomic data, and we will be focusing on the southern cone of South America, from which we have data from both sources. So for this, we gathered a data set consisting on 86 specimens from Argentina, Bolivia, and Uruguay. We used CO1 as the representative of mitochondrial DNA. We had some sequences as a result of barcoding, and we added several more. And then we also used genomic data. We did dd-RAD sequencing. This was performed at the Cornell Lab of Ornithology in collaboration with Leo Campagna. And so if we just jump to the results, what we can see is that the mitochondrial DNA shows 4 clearly differentiated lineages. One of them, which you can see on your right, is in the Patagonia. I'm sorry, on your left. No, you're right. That's the Patagonia thing. It's Patagonia. It has all the individuals from Patagonia. It's the only lineage that you can find there. But you will see in blue and in green that there are also some individuals from central and northern Argentina that also have this lineage. Then we have what we call the widespread clade. This is found, with the exception of Patagonia, in all the rest of the distribution. So it's found, you can find it in central Argentina, northern Argentina, in Uruguay to the east, the brown dots, and in Bolivia to the west. And then we have 2 smaller lineages, the northeastern Argentina clade, which is represented by a few individuals in northeastern Argentina only. And then what we call the Bolivian highlands clade. And it's important to notice that this Bolivian highland clade is represented by 4 of the 5 individuals that we collected in Bolivia. So actually, this is the correct. So 4 of the 5 individuals are here, but 1 was here. So we can see, based on these things that I'm showing, that there is not a clear phylogeographic structure here, even though one of the lineages is present in Patagonia and we cannot find it anywhere else. There are some places in Argentina that you can find 2 or even 3 different lineages in symmetry. So what happens when we compare these with the genomic DNA? First of all, this is a principal components analysis based on 2,500 SNPs. And the first thing that we can see is that there is not such a sharp boundary that we can find as we did with the mitochondria. We get on this cluster most of the northern Argentina specimens appear here. Here are the Patagonia specimens, but we get a lot of intermediate specimens with intermediate genomic content from central Argentina mainly. So actually the very good differentiated group is the one we find in the highlands of Bolivia, that what we can see up there, right? In addition to this, we also, if we also colorize the dots based on the mitochondrial content that they had, what we can see is that the correspondence between the mitochondrial clades and the genomic DNA content is only partial as well. So for example, we can see that these 4 individuals that were the ones that had this small northeastern Argentina clade that I mentioned cannot be distinguished based on their genomic DNA. And in addition, we also have 2 cases in which the birds have a genomic content that is consistent with the locality in which they were, in the highlands of Bolivia and also in the central Sierras, also highlands in central Argentina. But the genomic content is, as I said, the genomic content is consistent, but the mitochondrial lineage that they had was a different one. If we analyze this with structure, we also see here 3 different genomic clusters. If we colorize them based again on the geographic locality in which the birds were collected, we can see that there are 3 clades. One is the widespread clade that I mentioned, the other one is the clade from highland Bolivia, and the other one is the Patagonia clade. Again, in the Patagonia clade we find specimens from different parts of Argentina as well. So the first thing that we see is that there is a lot of admixture. So we have at least 15 to 20 individuals that have at least 20 to 45, 50% of their genomic content corresponding to a different clade than the widespread, even though the majority of the DNA appears to be from the widespread clade. So this is indicating a lot of gene flow. Again here, if we concentrate on the mitochondrial lineage to which each of these individuals belonged, we can see that, again, the 4 specimens that showed this different mitochondrial lineage cannot be distinguished based on their genomic DNA. And again, we can see also the presence of some specimens that fall in a genomic cluster that is consistent with their locality, but different to what mitochondrial DNA would have indicated on its own. Here we have the example of the highlands in Bolivia, the bird that is indicated with the red arrow as a mitochondrial clade that was consistent with the widespread clade, but its genomic DNA is identical to the 4 individuals which have the correct mitochondrial content. And the same with the other bird that I showed before. We have 4 birds that show a lot of admixture, but they are similar in their genomic content. One of them, however, had a mitochondrial DNA that was consistent with the Patagonian clade. If we project this on a map, what we can see is the probability that a bird collected in a particular locality would belong to one of these clusters. The darker the color, the higher the probability. So what I want to mention here, or stress here, is that in southern Patagonia, there is a high probability of belonging to a Patagonia cluster. In the northern portion of the distribution, we have dark red, so birds are highly likely to belong to the cluster of the widespread lineage. But however, the lighter colors indicate lower probabilities. So we can see that there's a very broad zone of contact in which birds can have DNA from both of these clusters, and this again is consistent with gene flow. Finally, I just want to mention that we also tried to analyze what happens with isolation by distance, and what we found is that there are significant results indicating that also these can be influencing the results in some of the aspects that we are describing. So to wrap it up, what we found is that there's evidence of a deep isolation among populations in this species that probably happened between 2 and 2.5 million years ago, based on the divergence that we found in the mitochondria. It's interesting that this isolation in Patagonian populations could have occurred as a consequence of glaciations. There are evidences of glacial refugees in this area consistent with this time frame that we are discussing. And the same is true for the high Andes. We have less individuals collected in the Andes, but we still think that this could be related, and we need to go further into that, with also isolation between lowland and highland populations stronger than it is now in glacial periods. However, the genomic analysis revealed the presence of secondary contact and high levels of gene flow among lineages, and also we in fact found that there are cases of mitochondrial introgression in at least 2 different geographic areas. More generally, this is a call for caution when interpreting results based on mitochondrial data alone, and we need to try to consider other sources of DNA information as well. And just to know we are moving forward with this, there are a few things that we still want to do. One of them is analyze the correspondence between vocalizations and the diversity in the species that we found both in the mitochondrial DNA and the genomic results. Another thing that we want to do is include Trochleurites gobi in the study. This is a population that is in the Malvinas Islands off the Patagonian coast. It is now considered a separate species based on mitochondrial data, a few nuclear markers and vocalizations. But we want to know what happens when we consider genomic DNA as a whole, particularly because the mitochondria suggest that it's the sister lineage to the Patagonian clade, but we want to know what happens when we consider more information. And finally, we want to also perform a larger scale analysis because there are many more lineages, mitochondrial lineages, that have been shown to exist when we consider the whole distribution of the species. So we want to know what's going on there as well. So with that, I want to thank, well, a lot of co-workers, both from the museum in Buenos Aires and the Cornell Lab for Ornithology that helped with different aspects of this. Also, people that granted permits and helped with logistics in the field, and of course, the financing agencies. And thanks a lot to you, and I'm open for questions. Yes?
So you mentioned vocalizations at the end. What is the knowledge from bird watchers, whatever, where do the differences in song types fall relative to your populations?
Well, vocalizations in this group are really complex.
Yeah.
There have been some studies performed at continental scales, but not focusing so much on sharp differences, but variation and whether latitudinal differences can be found. Actually, there's a recent study that shows that there's more variation at higher latitudes. So there were different approaches. I would say that the only one that I know, the only study that I know that compared in this kind of approach the vocalizations was that performed by part of our group, but comparing Trochleurites gobi from the Falkland Malvinas Islands and the Patagonian coast, and what happened with those two populations, and in that particular case, vocalizations were different, and it's one of the reasons why it's now considered different species. But there has not been, within the continental population, there has not been studies showing sharp boundaries among vocalizations still. That's it. Okay, thank you very much.